Welcome back to Nora Frame, where the shadows hold stories and the past never stays buried. Tonight, we're taking you to a quiet town in rural Japan. Ordinary evening turns into a chilling discovery that no one could have expected. It all started with a shoe and ended with something far more disturbing. Let's rewind the reel to 1989 and dive into the mystery. Now, when you hear Fukushima, your brain probably jumps straight to the 2011 earthquake and the infamous nuclear meltdown. And fair enough, that was kind of a big deal. But today's story, way weirder. No radiation, nor tsunamis, just a dead body found in a toilet. Yup, this is the tale of an infamous toilet corpse case. Strap in. Let's rewind to February 28th, 1989, in a rural town in Fukushima called Tamura. A 23-year-old elementary school teacher was finishing up her day. Around 6 p.m., dark, freezing, typical Japanese winter evening, she walked from the school building back to her staff dorm, just a few minutes away. Each teacher had their own room, and each room had its own private bathroom, a luxury in a small village setting. And like most people finishing a long day, she decided to take a quick bathroom break, alone, as usual. Now, here's where we get a little gross. This was 1980s, rural Japan, so modern plumbing wasn't really a thing in some areas. Instead of connected sewer system, each toilet had its own self-contained waste tank. Basically a private septic pit beneath each squat toilet. Imagine a U-shaped pipe underneath, with one end connected to the toilet above, and the other end leading outside, where waste trucks would occasionally stop by to vacuum out the contents. So, yes, a literal personal poop chamber under every bathroom. Efficient, disgusting, and as it turns out, crucial to this story. So, after finishing her business, the teacher glanced down into the toilet. Not something most of us do, but hey, maybe the lighting was weird. That's when she saw a shoe just sitting there, deep in the shadows beneath the squat toilet. Creeped out, she walked outside to the waste outlet and opened the manhole cover. And what did she find? A human leg. Screaming, she bolted and ran for help. Because what else do you do when your toilet suddenly becomes a crime scene? Soon enough, the school principal and a few brave teachers showed up, probably thinking it was a prank or maybe a dead raccoon. But no, that was definitely a human leg down there. No shoe, no movement, just leg. They called the police. Officers arrived, took one look and probably one big whiff, and did what any good cop would do. They reached in, hands first, into the septic tank. They grabbed both legs and pulled, but the body wouldn't budge. Something was stuck, or someone really didn't want to come out. At that point, police called in the fire department. The response? Bring in an excavator. Yeah, they dug up the entire U shaped septic pipe from underground, sliced it open with industrial cutters, and finally got the body out. What they found was beyond bizarre. The victim was male, his body twisted like a pretzel, arms and legs curled up, lying on his back inside the pipe, pants on, shirt off, and holding a neatly folded shirt in his arms, like a creepy little blanket. His face positioned directly under the squat toilet, staring up. Yes, it looked exactly like someone trying to spy on women using the bathroom. Let that visual haunt you. Since the body had been marinating in sewage for several days, the forensics team had to clean it twice before an autopsy could even happen. Once he was finally scrubbed down and vaguely recognizable, someone immediately ID'd him. The victim was Naoyuki Kano, 26 years old, a well-known face around town. The kind of guy everyone knew by name. Popular, outgoing, definitely not the type you'd expect to find dead under a toilet. According to the medical examiner, Kano had died 2 days earlier, on February 26th. Apart from some light scrapes on his elbows and knees, there were no external injuries. The cause of death? Compression of the chest combined with hypothermia. In plain English, the guy froze to death, stuck in a pipe beneath the toilet. Let that sink in. Slowly, like sewage. After a brief investigation, police reached their official conclusion: accidental death. Specifically, he got stuck trying to pee on a woman using a toilet. Case closed. Move along. Nothing to see here. Except everyone in the village knew Kenna, and none of them were buying it. His father was outraged. Locals were stunned. Kenna wasn't some creep hiding in bushes. He was a rising star in town, a sales manager at a Fukushima nuclear plant maintenance company. Played baseball, wrote poetry, spoke like a politician. The dude was practically the village's golden boy, not the type to crawl into a sewage pipe to get a peek. This wasn't just about reputation. People knew him. He was everywhere: community events, sports games, social functions, basically the kind of guy who waves at your grandpa and helps fix the festival speakers. So, no, the villagers didn't reject the police's conclusion just because they liked him. They rejected it because nothing about this case made sense. The logistics, the timing, the physics, it all smelled, well, almost as bad as the crime scene. So, what did the villagers do? They started a petition, a serious one, not just a couple of angry Facebook comments, a full-on handwritten door-to-door campaign joined by residents from neighboring towns. Within a month of the incident, over 4,300 people signed the petition demanding police reopen the case. For context, Kenna's village only had about 3,800 residents. Yeah, more people signed than actually live there. That's not a protest, that's a movement. So why the outrage? Why was everyone so convinced that this wasn't just some gross bathroom accident? Well, because once you start digging, and not just in septic tanks, this case is full of holes. Let's start with the biggest mystery of all. The U-shaped waste pipe had a vertical section about 36 centimeters wide. That's around 14 inches, and that's the bigger side. The indoor side, the one directly under the toilet, only 20 centimeters wide, barely 8 inches because of the squat toilet fixture. So realistically, there was only one possible entry point, from the outside manhole. Kenna was about 170 centimeters tall, roughly 5'7". His shoulders around 40.4 centimeters wide, per national stats for Japanese men in that age group. The pipe's opening, 36 centimeters. You don't have to be an engineer to do the math here. That's like trying to fit a laptop through a mail slot. Even if he somehow squeezed in, how did he twist, fold, and curl himself into that final position? No help? No bruising, no tool marks, no scratches on the entry point? Well, in fact, Kenna's father took the broken pipe pieces, reassembled them, and ran his own experiment, because apparently the cops wouldn't. His conclusion? There was simply no way his son could have crawled in on his own. Naked or clothes, it didn't matter. Physics wasn't playing along. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that he really was trying to peep. That he knew the pipe was dangerously tight, knew he could get stuck, knew it was below freezing, and decided to do it anyway. Does that sound like something a rational person, a sales manager, poet, athlete would do? On February 26th, when he died, the ground outside was covered with nearly 20 centimeters snow. The pipe would have been freezing, literally, like body-numbing cold. Not exactly prime conditions for a late-night perv mission. And here's the kicker, he wasn't even fully dressed. Kenna's upper body was completely naked. But instead of his shirt lying somewhere nearby or tossed in panic, it was folded neatly and tucked into his arms, like a gift. Let that visual settle in for a second. If this was really a spur-of-the-moment peeping incident, why take off your short? Why fold it? Why hold it like a baby blanket in a freezing damn septic pipe under a squat toilet with terrible lighting? What exactly was he hoping to see down there? HD live streaming wasn't part of the plumbing. The autopsy found only minor scratches on his elbows and knees, nothing else. The official cause of death? Hypothermia, compounded by chest compression, which means he was alive when he entered that pipe. If he'd been stuffed in there post mortem, the autopsy would have shown trauma, but there were no signs of violence. And if he died before entering the pipe, well, corpses are known for climbing into toilets on their own. So either this guy crawled in himself, which makes zero sense, or someone helped him get in there, willingly or otherwise. When Kenna was pulled out of the pipe, he wasn't wearing shoes. Police found one of them inside the pipe, near his head, the same one the teacher first spotted. But the other shoe, nowhere near the scene. It was eventually discovered far away on a riverbed. No explanation, no trail, just mysteriously separated shoes. So what happened? Did he kick one off mid-crawl and throw the other across town for fun? Or does this sound more like someone tried to stage a scene and didn't quite finish the job? And here's where it gets personal. Kenna knew the teacher. In fact, he was also good friends with her boyfriend. The three of them were close. Recently, the teacher had been receiving a string of harassing phone calls, so Kenna and the boyfriend teamed up, recorded the calls, investigated who was behind them, and even handed over tapes to the police. He wasn't stalking her, he was helping her, which means he knew her routine. He knew her schedule, and if he really wanted to spy on her, he also would have known she wasn't even in town. Kenna's body was found on February 28th, but he died on the 26th. The last person to see him alive was his father, who remembered hearing his son say, "I'm heading out to take care of something," around 10 a.m. on February 24th. And then, he just vanished. So the question is, where was he for those 2 missing days? Now, here's where things get even weirder. That week, Japan was mourning the death of Emperor Showa, February 24th, with the national funeral, and most of the country was on break. The teacher, she had taken official leave from the 24th to the 27th and had gone back to her hometown. Kana definitely knew this. They were friends, so let's ask the obvious. If he knew she wouldn't be back until the 28th, are we really supposed to believe he crawled into a freezing sewer pipe 2 full days in advance, shirtless, to wait under a toilet for her return? For what? An ultra slow motion peep show? Police later found Kana's car parked near the teacher's dorm. The keys were still in the ignition. The doors weren't even locked. That doesn't sound like someone settling in for long, cold, voyeuristic stay-on. Maybe he didn't plan to be under that toilet at all. Some people even raised questions about the teacher herself. It was night. The toilet had poor lighting. The pipe was deep. Yet somehow she casually noticed a shoe way down in the muck. And instead of calling someone, she went outside by herself and opened the manhole cover to investigate. Brave? Well, sure. Unusually curious? Also sure. A little too calm for someone who just saw a shoe floating in the poop chamber? Well, you decide. Some conspiracy-minded folks even speculated. Could the teacher have killed him? Maybe stage it to look like he was a pervert and conveniently discovered the shoe herself. But honestly, there's no evidence for that. And no clear motive. No bad blood, no secret affairs, just a lot of weird coincidences. Enough to raise eyebrow, but not enough to file charges. But then, things take a darker turn. Just a month before Kana's death, there was a serious incident at the Fukushima Niichi nuclear plant, the same one his company maintained. A critical pump in reactor number 3 malfunctioned, releasing shards of metal and forcing an emergency shutdown. The man in charge? Kano's colleague. And shortly after the incident, that colleague committed suicide. Coincidence? Maybe. But when people die around corporate disasters and no one talks about it, folks tend to raise questions. 10 days before the incident, the village held a heated mayoral election. Kano, with his gift of gab, was recruited by one of the candidates to give campaign speeches and rally support. He wasn't just involved, he was front and center. Now, here's the thing. In rural Fukushima, nuclear power wasn't just a science topic, it was a political grenade. One side wanted the jobs and economic boost, the other feared the health risks. Local leadership had serious influence over the plan's future. If Ghana had uncovered shady dealings during the election or backed the wrong side, it's not impossible he stepped on some powerful toes. And suddenly, a weird death doesn't seem so random. And that's what bothers people the most. Ghana's death happened right after the election, right after a nuclear plant scandal, right after his name started showing up on too many lists in too many rooms. Too many coincidences, too many convenient silence, and one too many bodies in the worst possible place. But at the end of the day, everything comes back to one simple, stubborn question. How did it get into the pipe? This case has officially been ruled an accidental death. Failed act of voyeurism. Case closed. But here's the problem. Not a single theory fully holds up. Not the physics, not the motive, not the timeline. Nothing fits, and no one wants to keep digging. The villagers tried. They sent in thousands of signatures demanding the case be reopened. Well, the police declined. Their reasoning? There was no evidence of foul play. No bruises, no wounds, no crime. Just one dead man in a specific tank and a whole lot of silence. And so the case quietly disappeared, buried under paperwork, bureaucracy, and sewage. 30 years later, many still believe this wasn't some tragic toilet accident, but a perfectly staged, flawlessly executed murder. A message, a warning, a cover up. What really happened in that dark little pipe beneath the school? Maybe only one person ever knew, and he's not talking. So if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We've got more true crime tales, heist, and high-stakes mysteries coming your way right here on Noir Frame. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, the best stories aren't always fiction. See you in the next one. Bye.